Welcome to the For Love and Money podcast, the show where business and social purpose meet to inspire a movement for positive change. Here's your host, Carolyn Butler-Madden.
Today's guest on the For Love and Money podcast believes that many people want to support organisations that are aligned with their values, but there's no easy way to find those organisations who put purpose ahead of or equal to profit. So she set out to make it easy for them by creating an ecosystem to find the for-purpose organisations tackling social and environmental change. Jenni Harding is founder and managing director of Greatest Good, a directory, community and marketplace that helps conscious consumers to find, engage and support with for-purpose organisations. Greatest Good connects conscious consumers with social enterprises, charities, community groups, co-ops and other not-for-profits and B Corps who are aligned with their values. Their vision is to simultaneously grow the for-purpose sector and build a community willing to collectively tackle social and environmental issues. Jenni left the corporate sector to align her work with her values. As you'll hear on this episode, it's not always easy to follow this path, but her belief in her vision and her commitment to bringing it to life inspires her to keep showing up and building the organisation to deliver on its promise, helping you to do your greatest good. Enjoy. Jenni, welcome to the For Love and Money podcast.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I'm a big fan of what you've been doing and listened to quite a few of your previous episodes. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Oh, wonderful. It's a pleasure. And I've been wanting to get you on here for a while. So you will know the first question is always about love.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear your thoughts, Jenni, on, thinking about business. Is there a role for love?
Yeah, I think there is. There's actually, I probably should have grabbed it beforehand because I'll have to reach. I have a little thing that sits on top of my computer that says work from your heart. And that was actually given to me by someone that I mentor. And to me, you need to love what you do as an individual. You need to, as a business owner and founder, you need to love what you do and you need to have people that actually work with you that love what they do. So it's very much, I think a lot of people spend their time doing what they're good at and what they can get paid for, and then they spend their time outside of work doing what they love. And I think to the extent you can bring that in and then bring in the purpose piece and have all of those together, which is the Japanese model of ikigai, which I do a lot of presentations and workshops on, but you can bring all of that together and you've actually got people that love what they're doing. They're playing to their strengths. They're working. They're passionate about what they're doing. They're performing and flourishing and thriving in the organisation. The research shows when you've got people playing to their strengths, they're flourishing and thriving, and it just makes for a win-win situation.
Totally. And I love that you mentioned ikigai. And, when you say people usually look to outside of their work to fulfill their passions, how inefficient is that as well? Like when you can bring it all in together, it just, I often just think, wow, we haven't even, scratched the surface of the potential of individuals to fulfill their full potential and in doing so fulfill the potential of the organisations they serve as well.
Yeah, and that's, I think if you can optimize the individual, optimize the team, optimize the organisation, optimize the community, optimize the country, optimize the world, that's love.
Yeah, and that's success.
Yeah.
And it's such a no-brainer, and yet it seems it's such a challenge to get many business leaders out of the headspace of business as usual. But there are many who are walking that path. What were you going to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's that whole, and I'm saying this because I've done a business degree and an MBA, but it's that whole you need to win and therefore someone else needs to lose for you to be successful. Mm-hmm. And I'm very much of the view that if we all lift each other up and no one gets left behind, we all flourish and thrive. And then as an organisation, as a community, as a country, we flourish and thrive and everyone just keeps lifting each other up. And, it's again, that leading from love. And being inclusive and bringing people along the journey with you rather than the fear and, a lot of the division that's being rolled out by politicians.
Yeah.
And right all the way down. It's
and media.
Someone winning, someone losing, as opposed to let's actually get everyone to flourish and thrive.
And I love, flourish and thrive. You've mentioned that a few times, and I love that. It's that old pie metaphor, isn't it? You divvy up the pie, you divide up the pie. One person wins, the other person loses, rather than, well, let's come together and build a bigger, tastier, pie for more people to enjoy. And it's that mindset. And I'm with you 100%, 100%. So let's get your backstory. I'd love, because you've got an interesting sort of career trajectory, and I'd love you to share it with our listeners.
Yeah, sure. I never think it's interesting, but other people might. But I like listening to other people's backstory. So my background is actually in the investment industry. So I literally left high school on the first day of what was then HSC, heard the same speech I'd heard for the last 5 years, got up and left and never went back. And I ended up working for what was then a top 8 chartered accounting firm just as an office junior. Was interesting insight into the world of business, but the rest of my time after that was working for investment banks, investment managers, co-founding and being a co-founding staff member of various different investment managers. So I've done that for, let's just say, more than 35 years. And I started when I was 10, and that gets younger every year. But yeah, been doing that a long, long time, combining that with more than 20 years of part-time study. So the business degree and MBA that I mentioned as well. Having worked with quite a lot of startup and boutique or work for them, I then set up a consulting firm just around the time of the GFC. So the company I was working for, the managing director, who was a bit of a guru in the investment industry, saw the GFC coming, and we liquidated the entire portfolio.
Wow.
Without anyone knowing, our investors, anyone actually knowing. So we kind of got out of that unscathed. And I had previously said to him I was going to leave and start my own business and put that on hold. And having done quite a lot of startups, did my first ever shutdown, which not very exciting, dealing with the tax office for the next 2 years, things like that. But I set up a business that was predominantly investment consulting, so working with investment managers, startup and boutique investment managers, doing a lot of work for asset owners, so super funds, universities for their foundation funds, that type of thing. And yeah, while I was doing all of that, I was doing what I talked about before and spending, more than 25 years outside, it's probably close to 30 years outside of that, volunteering and doing pro bono and low bono work. But I realised as a consultant, I was being brought in to fix things, and what we really need to do was change people, and, that whole teach a man to fish and that type of thing. So having done the business studies, I then studied a Master of Applied Positive Psychology.
Wow.
Science of optimal human flourishing and what makes individuals, teams, organisations flourish and thrive, and the evidence-based science behind that. And during that time, I was approached by a social enterprise in New Zealand that wanted me to co-chair their startup advisory board, and they were running a social enterprise that was drawing on a whole lot of positive psychology science and getting little nudges for people to do little exercises on a daily or weekly basis to improve their mental health and well-being, so that in the same way that you go to the gym or you exercise every day, you do all these different exercises every day to improve the toolbox that you have in terms of your mental health and well-being in the same way that you do for your physical health and well-being. So doing that while I was studying my PosPsych Masters, and also sitting on a board of a charity in regional Victoria. And my final research, a long story, but my final research project for my PosPsych Masters was what do organisations of the future need to do to engage millennials. And this was 2017, so well before COVID. And the research showed that not only do they want to work for organisations aligned with their values, which we're definitely seeing now, not just in the millennial space, but across the board, but they also wanted to shop with, donate to, volunteer with and invest in. They think their superannuation is actually invested for good and making a social impact, which I can tell you is not necessarily the case. So yeah, I having learnt about social enterprises and all my time in doing the pro bono, low bono volunteering work that I was doing, I was very interested in, starting a social enterprise directory here, and then COVID hit. And so I didn't have a lot of consulting work because I couldn't leave my 5K radius being in Melbourne, and no one really wanted anyone in the office anyway. Everyone was working from home. And so I started fleshing out this idea of doing a social enterprise directory, then learnt that social enterprises could be not-for-profit or for-profit. So it's like, if I'm going to include them, why wouldn't I include all the other charities and not-for-profits? And if I'm going to include the for-profits, why wouldn't I also include B Corp? So I kind of expanded the scope. And then through a co-design process, working with various different groups, individuals, for-purpose organisations and service providers to the for-purpose sector, I just kept getting this feedback of, we don't just want a directory, we want to support these organisations, and, we want to do shopping, we want to do donating. So we essentially came up with a one-stop hub that helps people do their greatest good, whether they're an individual or an organisation. You can literally filter by values, find the organisations tackling the things that you care about, and then support them in a way that's meaningful for you. That could be shopping, donating, finding course and events, paid and volunteer jobs, and collaboration opportunities and resources all on the one system.
So you built all of this during lockdown?
I didn't do the actual tech building, though.
But you built the concept and the strategy, and so you wouldn't have been baking sourdough or anything. You
No, I did have plans because I love sourdough, and I did have plans, but I never actually got to it. No, I just found a whole lot of other things that I could be doing, and things that were kind of on my wish list like this, and kind of been, I should do that when I get time, and all of a sudden I had time. And there were lots of things happening online. So to be able to do a presentation or a workshop. So I literally went back to the first PowerPoint diagram, and it was a little circle in the middle of the page, which was social enterprise directory. And then it kind of grew over time into what it is now. But I did the specifications, a lot of the testing, a lot of the development, still do a lot of that stuff as well. But it was just all of the things that frustrated me. So we've got a grants directory, for example, and I had used grants directories working for various different charities, and you'd go down rabbit holes and spend hours looking at something and then discover it wasn't relevant to you, or it had closed 3 months ago and they hadn't taken it off. All of the things that frustrated me about the for-purpose sector, I've tried to address with greatest good.
Okay. So with an emphasis on the customer experience.
Going
exactly. Through.
And be very much a lot of the directories that are out there for the benefit of the actual organisations on there, and not the individuals coming to support them. And I just wanted to try and look at it from a different point of view.
So can you take us through, for our listeners who haven't been to your website, can you take us through the experience, what they can expect when they get there, and I guess what the value proposition is to them, and how they navigate their values?
Yep. I think it's an interesting thing, because often people don't think about their values. They might care about the environment or refugees or something, but not really think of it beyond that. So we've got a whole range of different values there. We had over 50. We recently took the Sustainable Development Goals off.
Oh, how come?
I spend a lot of time doing due diligence on investment managers in my day job, and I use that term quite loosely, but and in doing the due diligence on the organisations that wanted to list on there, we were having some really heated discussions with regards to whether they were actually complying with or delivering on the SDGs. And I would say to them, just because you're working with women, you're not actually solving SDG 5.
Yeah.
Under those 17 sustainable development goals, there's 169 target areas. Tell me which ones you're working on and give me the proof to verify what you're actually doing. And a lot of people didn't even know about the 169 underlying target areas. And so we only had a handful of organisations that could actually prove to me that they were complying with that. And having come from the investment industry, where you see a lot of impact washing and a lot of what ASIC has taken an action on now, and my belief is that's going to start to move over into the for-purpose sector as impact investing becomes more day-to-day normal in terms of something that's an alternative, which it still is at the moment. is that, ASIC will start to look at these organisations that have been making a whole range of claims that would border on greenwashing, blue washing, pink washing, black washing, brown washing, whatever you want. I just call it impact washing.
Yeah.
And so, we just made the decision to take it down, and we still have 30 different impact areas people can choose from, 9 different organisational types. But we just don't want to mislead anyone, and we don't want people on our site that aren't willing to kind of uphold this high values of where I think ASIC is going, and let's start at that level now rather than let's start down here and when ASIC catch up will change everything. So
that's great. I think that really signals how serious you are about delivering a directory that is genuinely, creating that kind of impact. So that's great. But it's so interesting. Yeah, I found that with the global goals, there are still so many people who don't know about them, which blows my mind. Yep. And then I'd say 95% don't know about the targets behind them. And yet, I just think, but that's where you can actually see how you align, your organization aligns, and that's just ripe for innovation and focus opportunities. It's such a missed opportunity. But that's a whole other subject.
Yeah, well, and part of the model that I originally did before we actually went into development, because I kind of did the PowerPoint prototype and all the accompanying notes before we actually got it developed. And part of the plan was that we would actually then have an SDG 1 fund and an SDG 2 fund. So not only could you shop with organisations that were doing that sort of thing or donate to them if they were a charity or, support them in another way, you could actually invest in them as well. And that, unfortunately, by the time we get enough organisations that are actually doing what they say they're doing in those different SDG areas, a lot of those SDGs, they'll pretty much only have a couple of years to run because no one's looking at it that way.
Yeah. And I can imagine there is a lot of admin involved, even taking away the SDGs, just, checking up the evidence that organisations aren't just talking the talk.
Yeah. And it's in my DNA. As I said, I do due diligence on investment managers, either for investment managers or for the asset owners looking to invest in them or stay invested in them. And so on a relative scale, it's reasonably easy to see, if there's any impact washing or not compared to some of the more complicated investment managers that I look at.
So you're building on the skills that you developed over however many years. That's amazing. So great is good because I love the customer experience. If you can talk through how somebody could shop there. So let's say someone comes in and says, okay, I've got my Christmas shopping to do. I'll go in there. What's the experience that they'll get?
Yep, they can do it 2 different ways. So they can come in and search by their values and find organisations aligned with what they're doing or what they believe in and want to support. And so they can actually find those organisations and then go through them and have a look at their profile pages and the various different products. So the one that I always use, which is one of our foundation members, is refugees, migrants, and SisterWorks comes up in there. And we've got a lot of SisterWorks products and donations and one event and some jobs, paid and volunteer jobs with them as well. So again, it's that you can support them in a way that's meaningful to you, but you've kind of come down that filter of refugees and migrants being important to you. So that's one journey. The other is up the top menu. We've just also got the options to shop and to donate and various other things. So you can just shop and then you've got the standard categories there. Obviously, this time of year, there's lots of gift hampers, gift boxes, gift packs and lots of other things. But we have a running theme of shop good, gift good, do good, feel good, so that you can actually buy for yourself, buy for others, know that you're supporting, even if it's not an organisation that's aligned with, say refugees or women or whatever, that you're actually buying from an organisation that is either a social enterprise, a charity, a not-for-profit or a B Corp. So they're the only organisations we have on as members that you can transact with. So it's knowing that you're doing good and then feeling good about it because you're getting a good present, you're making a good purchase, you're actually having money go back into that organisation and they can increase the impact of what it is they're doing.
So it's great for people who go, I want to shop ethically. I care about who my money goes to support. So lots of young people, especially my daughter, just breezed in and breezed out quickly saying, I need to buy some white tank tops and I want it to be from an ethical company. And so, but yeah, you can go in with that sort of general idea rather than brand specific and filter by impact areas. So, I've got it up here now. It could be animal rights, children and youth, criminal justice, disaster relief. I mean, there's loads. Right.
And again, a lot of those were co-designed. So I just had women and I just had Indigenous Australians there. And in some of the groups that we had, there was a couple of people from an Indigenous charity, and they said, do you realise that 94% of the organisations purporting to represent Indigenous Australians are not Indigenous owned or led? And so we split that out. So we've got Indigenous General, Indigenous owned, Indigenous led as 3 different categories. Similarly, we know, there's a lot of organisations out there that are helping women and purporting to help women as well, but often run by men. And so we've got women, we've got women-owned, women-led as well. So again, if that's important to you, that sort of came through in the co-design process as well, some of those categories.
That's brilliant. So you were co-designing with who? With interested customers?
So a range of different people. So a couple of different networking groups. So acting as various different individuals, some that were for-purpose organisations, so charities, not-for-profit, social enterprises, B Corps, talking to them, and also service providers. So people that were doing things like impact measurement and various other things, marketing and things like that to the for-purpose sector. So just trying to get, and we literally did presentations, feedback surveys, questionnaires, group chats, or I like to call it group therapy, because often, someone would say something and then someone else would bounce in and they'd go off in this whole different tangent. But it was awesome because everyone was so engaged and people stayed on the line after we finished. We just kept recording, getting all of this data and information that helps us, be better. And every single, whether it's a newsletter or whatever we send, any sort of email we send out, we're always asking for feedback. If someone buys something that hasn't bought before, I will send them, a personal email going, how did you hear about us? What worked for you? What didn't? We'd love to hear your feedback because it just makes us better.
So a consumer coming in, they can shop on the site.
Yeah.
They're not paying any extra by coming through you.
No, it's the terms and conditions that they offer, that any of the organisations on the site offer us the same prices. So,
okay. And so the business model, the finances under the business model is the B2B side of it?
Yes. So we've got various different types of memberships, because some people aren't selling anything. They just want a directory listing. Some people want that plus access to the grants directory. Some people want all of that stuff and just sell products and nothing else. Others want to have the job listings, the event listings, access to the grants directory, unlimited donations. We treat donations like a product. So we've got nominated amounts. So if you nominate $100, you can see what the impact is of that $100, things like that. So we have 4 different membership types that for the majority of organisations are between $4 and $10 per week. And from those, we take a very small commission of sales. We don't take nothing from donations, because in my research, I was finding organisations that were taking up to 75%.
Oh, you're kidding.
Morally reprehensible.
Wait, what?
75% the first year, 50% the next year, 25% the year after. So essentially,
no way.
Half of the donations were going to this company that they'd outsource to. So I really struggled with that. So we don't take any commissions from donations at all. So we have the donation model. We have the commissions that come out of any product sales. And I also do consulting. So some of the consulting that I would do in my day job, I'm doing some work at the moment for a startup investment manager that is going to be an environmentally friendly fund, and they are part owned by a B Corp, which is significantly majority owned by one of the biggest pension funds in the world. So, and as you know, us B Corps like to stick together and trade together. So instead of doing that through my consulting business, I'm actually doing it through greatest good. So we've got consulting revenue, and I've done a range of different other paid and pro bono consulting work through greatest good as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen that. It sounds like a very unique model to do it that way, but I've seen it also through another guest who was on the podcast, Sally Irwin. Do you know the Freedom Hub? So that's similar because they've got their modern slavery consulting, as well as their cafe and their shop and the survivor school. So yeah, interesting. And do you know what? This is what I love about this sector is the innovation that comes out of it. I've always said sustainability and purpose are the biggest drivers of innovation, and I see it day after day.
Yeah, I think it's just, if you find, I'm very much, my mantra this year is instead of go hard or go home, it's go harding or go home. But I'm very much, if it's not a hell yeah, then it's a no. So something has to either frustrate me or annoy me to such an extent that I want to do something about it, or I walk away. Like, I'm not one of these people that will just complain over and over again, oh, this happens and, this happens, and don't do anything about it. If it's enough for me to continually complain or be excited about it, then it's something I need to take action on. So it's just, kind of who I am. I'm not one to stand by and do something or not do something if it's something I'm really passionate about changing.
I love that philosophy, and I love that quote. If it's not a hell yeah, it's a no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really, really important because, we get, as you know, I get invites to everything, and there's so much stuff coming on and going on all at the same time. And if you went to all of that stuff, you wouldn't actually do anything else.
Yeah.
You would just go to that, which is fine, and that works for some people, but you have to make decisions every day. So I literally pop everything into my calendar of what's happening next week. And then on Fridays, I go, well, these are the events that are coming up and these are all the clashes. Which things am I going to go to, show up to online or whatever, so that it's got to be the ones that I'm really passionate about. Otherwise, I'm, giving up my work time to do something that, I'm not really all that interested in, or it doesn't help me or my business.
Well, thank you for saying yes to the Fill Up and Money podcast. And
I think I said a hell yeah a while ago, but we got here in the end.
Yeah, and it's that idea that every yes is a no to something else.
Yeah, exactly.
And you've got to be clear. Yeah, otherwise you can just waste so much time because there's so much happening these days.
Yeah, and it's all super interesting, but it's
yeah, and there are so many groups that are like, come to this, come to this, come to that. It can be overwhelming, but that's something I love about Greatest Good is you've combined a few things into one.
Yeah.
So you start providing value on a number of levels to the consumers. I hate calling them consumers. But I tried to distinguish
away from it. Yeah, we
to the citizens. The citizens.
We're starting to call them supporters because they can be individuals or they can be organisations. So I've always struggled with that. We had a tagline of connecting conscious consumers to for-purpose organisations, which unless you were in the for-purpose space meant absolutely nothing. So now we just say helping you do your greatest good, because it doesn't matter whether you're an individual, whether you're an organisation, whether you're a potential member that's a for-purpose organisation, we're helping everyone. So there's over 600,000 charities, not-for-profits, B Corp, social enterprises in Australia, and we want to be the one-stop for everyone to come and do their greatest good.
Oh, I love that vision.
Enjoying the podcast? If you're looking for more inspiration, head to our website, thecauseeffect.com.au, for more resources on how you can start using your business as a force for good. Or buy the For Love and Money book. Every copy sold allows us to protect 1 square metre of rainforest.
So what are your plans? You mentioned to me earlier you had some plans with corporate gifting.
Yeah, we're looking to introduce gift cards so that organisations, when they want to support their staff or their customers, consumers, whatever it is they have, clients, that they can actually come on and buy gift cards. So it hopefully aligns with that organisation's value, but also the gift recipient's value, and they get to choose how they do their greatest good and which organisations they're going to support. So, we're just doing some final touches now to get that up and going, and hopefully that will be finalised this week. So, yeah.
Brilliant. And so for all those organisations that say they are purpose-driven and ethical, this is a wonderful opportunity to actually walk the talk.
Yeah.
That.
Every single transaction supports a social enterprise, a charity, a not-for-profit, or a B Corp. So, yeah, we call it acting and transacting in line with your values. So doing all of those things where the organisation's driven to do good and looking to do good by their staff and their clients and have them aligned in the same way.
Yeah, brilliant. So you started Greatest Good March 2020.
That's when I started doing the research for it. Yes, that's COVID.
Yeah.
That was all of a sudden I had a bit more free time on my hands.
Yeah, but that's not free time, Jenny. You started that's where you started investing your hard-earned time into this. So we 4.5 years down the track, near coming close to 5 years. What have you learned in that time? From what you set out to achieve to where you are now? What have been some of your greatest learnings?
That it's hard to do good. I have another girlfriend and we often get on the phone and we say, why is this so freaking hard? And the reality is if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. So I think it's hard to do good. I think marketing, which is, I'm a certified strengths assessor. So I help people identify, use and play to their strengths. Marketing is something I've never done, never enjoyed, never been good at. And I realise I'm talking to you that does a lot in this space as well. But I didn't have a social media presence. I think I had about 200 followers on LinkedIn. I wasn't on any other social media platform because I know from the science what it does to people's mental health and well-being. And so all of a sudden, despite having a lot of credibility in an industry that I worked in and doing a lot of stuff in the for-purpose sector, but not necessarily publicly facing and kind of just doing stuff in the backgrounds and working for various organisations, all of a sudden I had to be the face and the voice and get this social credibility in terms of social media rather than social impact. But that was a real challenge and still is a real challenge for me. It's just my jam is very much directing and producing and being in the background and pushing others forward. And so doing all of that was and still remains quite hard. So it's a point of frustration and concern. So it was really only last year there was a photo added to LinkedIn, but prior to that you wouldn't find a photo of me anywhere on the internet. I very much liking to fly under the radar. So I think that's always a challenge, I think, for any business owner and someone that's starting a business to actually be that face and to be out there, because there are some people that just want to start a business because it's what they love to do and they don't necessarily want the limelight and all that sort of thing. But I think that was that. And it takes a lot longer to do anything than you think it's going to do. And I mean, I've worked with more than 120 startups. 80 of those have been in the investment industry. The rest have been generally female-led and purpose-led businesses doing mentoring and things like that. And I always say it's going to take twice as long and cost 3 times as much money. And it does. It's not easy.
You talk about how you don't like to be in the front, in the limelight of it. You're the back of office sort of presence. And yet here you are on a podcast. And this is another thing that I've learnt over my journey, that pursuing something that you care about deeply forces you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, if someone had told me years ago that I would be a speaker, I would have laughed hysterically because it's just not me. And yet over time, I've gone from, oh my God, I've got to do this, but I hate it, to actually enjoying it now. But it's fascinating. Like we are capable of so much more than we realize. And I know some of those things are just sort of are not attractive to you. They're not what drives you. But you never know what you're going to find when you start exploring, doing different things.
I agree with you. It's I would say it's something I'm learning to be good at. So it's in terms of the strengths assessment stuff that I do, it's a learned behaviour, something I'm learning to be good at, may eventually be good at, but it's not something that's ever going to give me energy and light me up. It's not a true strength. It's something I've just learned to be good at. And so I have a lot of things when I'm doing coaching with people, when I'm talking to people of, does it light you up or does it drain you? Is it plumbing or electricity? And I always try and do work with people that are electricians and, do work that's electrifying, and spend as minimal amount of time as I can doing the plumbing, working with plumbers and people that just suck the life out of you. So I would say for me, the marketing bit and all of that stuff fits within the plumbing category. And yeah, I will learn to be good at it. I will do my best, because the more I can do that, then the better everyone else can do their greatest good. So it's kind of it's literally for the greatest good that I'm doing it. So it's knowing that, but yeah, at the same time, it's not something that I would love to be doing. And, I've been asked to do presentations and speak on various different events, and it's just like, yeah, I could probably do it, but it's my idea of,
Plumbing.
Pulling my fingers out. So, yeah, it's, who knows? Maybe I'll get over it. But yeah, I just think there's better people out there, better people tell stories. And I'm very much that systems thinker and trying to get stuff together, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think there's other people out there that it's more their strength to get up in front of, as you do, get up and talk and have that. And that's just not me.
Yeah. Yeah. And yet here you are now.
Yes, I know.
Doing it beautifully. Jenni, thank you. It's been a real joy to learn more about your journey and what you've built and, the value it has to, what did we call them? People who want to do the greatest good, people and organizations that want to do the greatest good. I'd love to invite you to close this episode by sharing your dream, Jenni's dream. So, if you could achieve, your greatest dream, your greatest good, the greatest good that you can achieve over the next 5 years, what might it look like?
I think there's kind of two things that come to mind. One is for me personally, I want greatest good to be the White Pages, the eBay, the Amazon, the Seek, the Eventbrite, and more, that one-stop hub for people to be doing their greatest good. So I want to grow it to that, so that it just becomes a place that everyone goes naturally to do anything they want to do in their life. And, they're living their values and, they're living their dreams, doing their greatest good. So that's kind of at me and the community level. What I'd like to see happen, and I don't know if this is ever going to happen, is the term not-for-profit does my head in, because you have to make a profit to actually be sustainable. And I'd like to see that whole terminology of what we call for-purpose organisations, so charities, communities, co-ops, not-for-profits, social enterprises, all of those organisations be considered by the government for-purpose organisations, and funding to be available at that level, not just to the charities that are registered, because a lot of the foundations and family offices can only invest in those charities with DGR1 status. So all of the organisations that I've referred to are actually tackling a lot of the problems that business and government can't or won't solve, and they need the funding to do that, to be more economically sustainable, have a greater impact, and, lift everyone up like I was talking about before. So I don't want everyone to have to become a charity to get the money to do what they want to do. I want that whole sector to be reclassified, stop using the term not-for-profit, and literally have funding be available to that whole sector to help them do their greatest good.
I love that vision. I absolutely love that vision. I can imagine the advocacy for it would be huge, but that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that and for sharing your story. And yes, look forward to seeing Greatest Good grow greater and gooder than ever.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the For Love and Money podcast. If you'd like to take a deeper dive into the purpose movement, visit us at thecauseeffect.com.au. And remember, doing good is good for business. So if you're not doing good, then what are you doing?